You're listening to What She Said on Canada Talks.
Well, one of the issues that's always been a controversy is marketing to children. Mm-hmm. And who decides whether it's, good stuff, bad stuff? How much power should advertisers have to get to children who are really, really impressionable? I'm Christine Bentley in studio with Sharon Caddy, and we have a guest who is really an expert on this. He's an expert actually internationally on reducing the harm of risky behavior, and this kind of sort of weaves into it. So welcome, Bill Bogart.
Thank you for having me on.
Our pleasure.
So you have just come out with a new piece, and so what is your point of view?
Well, there was actually two pieces in the Huffington Post, and how it all got started was a healthy eating research, which is a very prominent foundation in the United States, came out with a report on advertising to kids, and it was critiqued by a lot of commentators on food, like Marion Nestle. Mm-hmm. So I picked it up and I thought, well, I'm going to do some comment on that because Ontario is poised to do something about marketing to kids because of its Healthy Kids strategy, which is a program of the Liberal government. And that strategy has a lot of good things in it. But the experts that were advising the Ontario government said that all advertising to kids should be banned. The Healthy Kids strategy document that the government has put out said that it should be addressed. So I'm a little bit concerned that there's some backpedaling going on, and I'm a little bit concerned that people who would want the backpedaling would point to healthy eating research, a document, as a kind of marker. When in fact we have a province, Quebec, who has banned all advertising to kids for 3 decades now. We have some very good rigorous social science evidence that it works, that it actually does reduce the amount of junk food that kids consume. So, and the Quebec strategy has been endorsed by the Alberta Policy Coalition, which was a panel of experts 2 years ago. So I thought I used the HuffPost to point to that and say this is the way we should be going. Now, the second post picked up on another development in the United States, which is a program being put out by the Summit for Healthier America, which again is a high-level, high-profile organization, endorsing the notion of advertising healthy foods to kids. Mm-hmm. And this is where things, I think, get more controversial, and there's been quite the debate on Twitter about it. So my second post was that, and I do recognize the controversy, but I've come down on the side of saying that there shouldn't be even advertising of healthy foods to kids.
Well, I think one of the pieces in this is the Partnership for Healthier America Summit, where Michelle Obama believes that while this is not a taxpayer-funded health campaign, it is a for-profit venture.
Yes, it is.
She's come out in favor of it.
Yes, she has.
But our one of our experts, Yoni Friedhoff, who we've had on,
yes,
who is a big proponent of health in every form and on every level, both political and research and whatever. Has come out against it.
Yes,
so
yes, he has.
I think he would side on your
my perspective, and indeed,
perspective,
I cite Yoni in the second Huffington Post, and somebody called Casey Hines of Healthy Lunchbox, big on Twitter, is against it. But Benita Elias Zagel, who is I think her Twitter's lunch tray, and who's also very big, is for it. Michelle Obama is for it. So I recognize that this is a point of contention among people who generally are aligned against big food and the predatory practices in terms of kids, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I think what the fear might be, and as parents, where we know how vulnerable children are, how the slightest suggestion I mean, we see ads with kids picking things off the shelf as mom strolls the cart down the aisle. So we know that they're susceptible. The thing is, once you say this organization is allowed to because they're going to market healthy foods, then it's a slippery slope. Who decides? Because we already know that they're very susceptible to advertising.
Right.
Who then decides? Who becomes the arbiter? And that's a very powerful position, and then that leads to a whole thing where that has to be policed. So I think the Quebec model, which is no, you don't you can market to the parents can make the decision, and leave the kids out of it. Because we've all seen the temper tantrums at the checkout counter with the candy bars at eye level.
And I think we're of the same mind that way, but it's all predicated on the dollar, and there's money being made. There's money to be made.
Oh, sure. There's absolutely money being made, and we are talking about restricting speech. And I do think in a democratic society like ours, one which, when you look around the world, actually kind of works. Not perfect, but it works. You have to, anytime you restrict speech, you have to think very carefully about doing that.
Well, but do we? I mean, we've banned tobacco advertising.
True.
That's restricting speech. And we have a growing obesity problem, which we are trying to tackle. We're not quite sure. We can blame it on a million things, but at the end of the day, we're not exactly sure why all these initiatives that we're trying. We really want to eradicate the problem, but it hasn't worked. So until we have it figured out, maybe free speech is a small price. Free speech or advertising food to children or anything to children is a small price to pay. They're children after all.
May I say something?
Yes.
You go, girl. You're way out ahead of me. You're making all the arguments that I would make for, at the end of the day, restricting free speech in this context. And may I say, the Quebec model was challenged on the grounds of banning commercial free speech. It went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court sided in favor of the legislation. So it's not that it hasn't been tested in the courts. It has been, and our Supreme Court of Canada upheld the constitutional validity of restricting commercial speech in this context.
In favor of well-being.
Yes.
And not only that, but I mean, I think that every parent in the world would say, thank you to the Supreme Court, because now I'm not under pressure. I already have to, I already go toe-to-toe with my kids on a million issues, and now I don't have to go, at least I'm not getting pressured because they're watching ads all day long about, the 100% sugar pudding that they want me to buy that I don't want to buy because I know it's going to kill them.
Yeah, but now let's just remind ourselves, this is only the situation in Quebec. Mm-hmm. In fact, in the rest of Canada, most parents are contending with the very scenarios that you've
exactly. But I'm just saying, when we're talking about free speech, I think most parents would say, okay, I get it, but it's only free speech to children. Mm-hmm. These companies, that lobby can still exert its very powerful force on all of us who are adults.
Yeah.
Does this extend strictly to advertising in terms of print and broadcast, or does this extend to the advertising and placement on store shelving and everything, which I know is a whole other aspect of reaching to children?
Yeah, that's a very good point, and I don't think it does. So that continues to be.
We're still in battle there, Christine.
Yeah, and
okay, we'll get Bill to write another article, and then we'll have him back on that one.
The problem with the shelving point, which is an excellent one, is of course how do you say we're going to do it in a certain way to protect kids, but at the same time allow adults a freer arrangement. You know what I mean? It's very difficult to do it. Whereas with the banning of advertising to kids, what they do is target programs that are specifically designed for kids, like cartoons and things like that. And obviously then the ban can work. Not perfectly, but quite effectively.
Well, this is what she said on Canada Talks 167 Sirius XM. We are talking to Bill Bogart, an international expert on reducing the harm of risky behavior. If you miss part of this interview, you can always get it on demand, right, Sharon?
That's right.
And this is an ongoing controversy, an ongoing uphill battle, I guess. Where and they won with tobacco. And maybe they will win with food.
And it's never an easy win, no matter what the grounds. I mean, tobacco being also a very obviously harmful substance with all sorts of health problems related to it. But that was not an easy one battle either. There's a lot of money in the tobacco.
And it took several decades.
Yeah.
And it took a series of interventions. But I noticed that there was a piece in the Huffington Post that sounded like I'm promoting the Huffington Post.
Oh, yes, so you should.
Yes, so I should. But it really was a good news story about how tobacco has fallen. Now, our global figures are around 18%. And when the campaign started, it was about 45%. So I always point to that as a piece of good news, a piece of optimism.
And the other thing, too, in tobacco, which is so encouraging, is that young people, the rate of young people smoking is decreasing significantly.
Yeah, although there's room to work on that.
Well, there's room to work. There's always room to work on it, but it's going in the right direction.
Yeah.
And we love that with food and obesity in our kids, right?
Yeah.
Well, there you go. I think we've run out of time.
We've run out of
Oh,
time.
Bill, that went fast, but it's been a pleasure having you here.
Thank you very much for having me on. Always a pleasure.
Great to have you, Bill Bogart. And this is What She Said on Sirius XM 167 Canada Talks.
Click the channel subscribe button for full-length interviews and more from What She Said here on YouTube.